Until recently, I lived with my parents in a private house near the city. They were always strict and difficult, so we almost never had guests. The only one of my friends they could somewhat get along with was Mike. I'd known him since first grade, and probably only he could be trusted in a tough situation. Unlike my parents, who found it easier to scold me for mistakes than to teach me how not to make them, Mike was always ready to help and give advice. He had way more life experience than I did. He grew up without a father, started working at 14, and still managed to hang out with girls. Of course, I envied him, but not maliciously. Rather, I was happy for his success. He was unlucky in one thing. His mother was an alcoholic, spent half the child support on booze, and used the rest to buy Mike food. Still, he had something I never had as a kid: freedom. A year after he turned 18, his mother passed away, so the apartment went to Mike. A week ago, he visited me in the evening. My parents went to the theater, so the house was ours for the next 3 hours. We didn't even think about parties. We knew what that could lead to. Throwing them at Mike's place made no sense. Even though I was 19, my dad was strictly against me staying out overnight. So when my friend suggested buying a cheap apartment on the city's edge, I was all for it. My parents didn't skimp on my allowance, and I knew how to save, putting most of it away for better times. I doubt I can afford a decent place on this, I said. You can, Mike smiled. Not just a decent one, but a new one in the latest condos. Yeah, right, I said, sounding disappointed. I'm serious, Mike insisted. I've got it all figured out. Our neighbor did the same thing recently. Now he's living it up. You've got enough for a place in one of those old 5-story buildings on the outskirts. It was built back in the Johnson era. The builders messed up the foundation, and there's a crack along the wall. There's mold, the heating's shot. The building's condemned and set for demolition, and the residents will be moved to new developments. So you want me to live in a dump that could collapse on my head? I asked, annoyed. Oh, come on, Mike said. You'll be there less than a month. It won't have time to fall apart. But when they move you, you'll get a 2-bedroom in a new building for free. How's that for motivation? I told him I'd think about it and let him know the next day I needed to talk it over with my parents and mentally prepare for the purchase. The conversation was long. I made a ton of arguments for buying and explained Mike's plan several times. In the end, my mom supported the idea, and then my dad did too, though probably just to get me off their backs. I didn't care. I was happy. The next day I went to see Mike. He showed me a listing he'd found online. The seller was a reasonable young guy, just a bit older than us. He'd inherited the place from a grandmother he barely knew, so he had no attachment to it and put it up for sale the day after getting it. The apartment was on the 4th floor. The steel door stood out against the battered, graffiti-covered walls. But behind it, things weren't much better. It smelled like only cats had ever lived there. The wallpaper was peeling. In some places there was just a dim bulb in the hallway instead of a light fixture, and the kitchen window was cracked in the lower corner. Luckily, it was summer, so spending 2 weeks here wouldn't mean freezing to death. The main room had a balcony, an old TV, and a couch where the grandmother had died. We immediately folded it up and covered it with a sheet. We weren't superstitious, but didn't want to sit where someone had died. The other room had a wardrobe, a bed, and a nightstand. Well, you could live here, Mike smiled. Maybe I'll stay with you, I asked. The apartment's in my name, so I'll get moved either way. About that, Mike hesitated. I'm not living alone. Remember Lisa from the other group? It all made sense. I'd have to live here. At least it had all the necessities. The steel door kept the world out, and my conscience wouldn't let me go back to my parents. Besides, I didn't really want to see my dad's face as he realized his son wasn't ready for independent life. That evening, we moved my stuff from my parents' house and Mike went home. For dinner, I only had tap water, so I decided to go to the store. The building was a bit isolated from the others, so the walk took a while. When I got back, it was dark. The streetlights were on. Near my entrance, I noticed a silhouette. Hesitating, I decided to approach. "Who are you?" the silhouette asked in a woman's voice. "I live here," I replied, turning from the door. The silhouette stubbed out a cigarette and came closer. It was a middle-aged woman, well-preserved for her age, but with a smoker's voice. "Linda," she said, offering her hand. "Stephen," I answered. "How long have you been here, Stephen?" "Just moved in today, and you?" "All my life, and I'm not leaving. The city officials think they can just kick us out, promise new apartments, but at best we'll get a cot in a shelter," Linda said. "But no way. I'd rather stay here, even if the crack runs right through the place." "Are there many people living here?" I asked politely. "No, just me and Bruce Anderson. He used to be in the Navy, got this place for his service. Then his family died in a car accident, so he's alone now. Lives on the 5th floor." We talked for a few more minutes until another silhouette appeared from the darkness. He stood straight, walked firmly, but a limp and heavy breathing gave away his age. "Meet Bruce Anderson," Linda nodded toward him. He stepped into the light, a gray-haired, mustached old man. I offered my hand, but he didn't respond. His eyes looked worried, clearly troubled, but I didn't ask. "Don't open the door at night," the old man said sternly. "The door?" I repeated. He didn't answer and quickly went upstairs. Linda and I exchanged glances. No answers, so after a while we went home. I don't know why, but his warning about the door unsettled me. That night, I locked the steel door with every bolt, and also my bedroom door with a latch. I couldn't sleep for a long time. Thoughts kept swirling. The new place weighed on me, and I couldn't get the old man out of my head. Probably just old age, I thought, and calmed down. That night, a loud crash from the apartment above woke me. Like someone was moving heavy furniture, then heavy footsteps, another crash, and finally, something glass, shattering on the floor. I got up and tapped my watch strap on the radiator. The noise stopped. The rest of the night was quiet. In the morning, before college, I met Linda by the entrance and politely asked about the apartment above. "Bruce Anderson," she smiled. "Definitely old age." He moved stuff around, I thought, smiled at Linda, and went to class. The day went as usual. After classes, I stopped by Mike's, met Lisa, and spent time with them until evening. I came home late under the streetlights and again saw a silhouette by the entrance. "How was your day, Linda?" I smiled at my neighbor, but she just looked at me with frightened eyes. "Something wrong?" I asked. "Steve, I don't know." Her voice trembled. "I just got back from work, was smoking here, then glanced at my window, and the light was on. Then suddenly, it went off. Maybe someone's there." "Oh, come on," I smiled. "This building's older than both of us put together. It's probably just the wiring. Want me to check?" "If you don't mind, Steve," she said, calming down a bit, and handed me her keys. I cursed myself for agreeing, but it was too late to back out. I had pepper spray with me, which gave me a little confidence. Linda's apartment was locked. With a shaking hand, I opened the door and quickly turned on the hallway light. No one. I checked the kitchen, then the living room, the bedroom empty. I didn't want to go back down, so I decided to shout to Linda through the window. She looked up, happy, and came inside. She offered me tea, but I politely declined and went to my room. An hour later, I was sitting at my laptop watching a show. The window was wide open, so I could hear everything outside, people's voices, distant cars. Suddenly, I heard a scream, a woman's scream. I jumped up, looked out the window. No one. Another scream. This time I realized it was coming from our building. It all made sense. Only Linda could be screaming. I wondered who could hurt her. An ex-husband? But if she didn't open the door, where was he? I froze for a second, eyes wide. My breath caught. I hadn't checked the bathroom. The thought hit me hard. The shock faded. I grabbed my phone and hid behind the curtain to see who left the building, in case I needed to identify the criminal. The dispatcher said the police were on their way. The squad car arrived in 10 minutes. No one left the building in that time. 3 officers ran inside. 1 waited outside. I waved to him and gave the apartment number so they could take my statement. 2 detectives knocked on my door, took my statement, then invited me to Linda's apartment. She was lying in the bathroom. A trail of blood led from the tub to the kitchen window. Maybe she tried to call for help or escape. The cause of death wasn't clear. No wounds, blood coming from her mouth, nails broken as if she fought someone. The police said they had to break down the door, meaning the killer had access. The detective guessed the murderer escaped through the attic and out another door, leading toward the woods. Sleeping alone was unbearable. I called Mike, asked him to come over. He reluctantly agreed. Lisa was staying at her place that night, so nothing kept him. I didn't tell the police about the old man upstairs. What was the point? They'd just interrogate him, and he'd move his nightstand around for them, I thought. The night went as usual. Around 4, I heard the familiar banging and a quiet voice. Then more glass, hitting the wall, and loud footsteps, like the old man was jumping in place. 5 minutes later, it went quiet, and I fell asleep. In the morning, Mike shared his impressions. "Not only did you make me sleep on the floor, but some old guy was jumping around upstairs all night." "You heard it too?" I smiled. "That's my upstairs neighbor, the senile old man." "Upstairs neighbor? So there's a crazy old guy living here, and you made me come over in the middle of the night and climb the dark stairs? What if he killed the woman?" I shuddered. Thoughts crept in about him, sneaking down, opening her door, hiding in the bathroom, waiting for her to be alone and take a shower after a long day. "Enough," I said. "He can barely breathe, let alone kill anyone." The day flew by, just 2 classes, so I got home early. Linda's brother came to her apartment. I met him in the hallway and asked about her family. He said she never had one, just bad luck, and he lived in another city, only came for the funeral. I spent the rest of the day at home, watched a show, went to bed early. Mood was bad. That night, the noise upstairs woke me again, this time more frequent and intense, like someone was trying to break through the floor with their feet. I barely managed to sleep. I woke up very early, Mike's words stuck with me. Could the old man really be capable of something like that? I finally decided to call the police. The squad arrived in an hour, scolded me for not mentioning all the residents, even threatened me with probation. When I told them about the old man and my suspicions, the detective decided to question him immediately. They told me to come along. They knocked on the door for a long time, but Bruce didn't answer. The detective decided to break it down. It was wooden. Inside was a well-kept apartment, portraits of Bruce and his family on the wall, but no sign of the old man. The bedroom door was closed. The detective knocked. Silence. He ordered the officer to break it down, too. The last barrier fell, and we entered. Bruce's pale, bald, thin body was sitting in a chair in front of a huge mirror. His gray hair was scattered around, either pulled out by someone or himself, and shards of something glassy. The old man's blood-smeared eyes were open, staring at the reflection of the door in the mirror. He was looking right at us. The detective called the coroner, and the old man was taken away. I stayed home, skipped college, called Mike, but he didn't answer. I felt lonely and creeped out. That night, I locked all doors and windows, slept with the light on, and barely managed to fall asleep. At dawn, I opened my eyes, stared at the ceiling, and thought. Suddenly, crashing upstairs, jumping and running across the apartment. Morning workouts now, I thought. The realization hit a few seconds later. I jumped up and dialed the police. Time dragged. The noise stopped, and I heard the squad car arrive. They searched the apartment. No one. I grabbed my laptop, money, and passport. The officer agreed to stay with me until I left, so I packed quickly. I was so scared I forgot where I'd put my phone, so I had to call it from the landline I'd never used before. On the way, the detective told me the results of the old man's autopsy. He'd been dead for at least 3 days, meaning he was killed the day he warned us about the door. I stayed at Mike's until evening while he was at college. When he got home, we decided to take 3 friends and get the rest of my stuff from the apartment. The streetlights came on as we approached the building. Bad idea to go at night. Near the house, I glanced at my windows. The light came on for a moment, then went out. I almost fainted. I don't remember how we got home, just that I was yelling for everyone to get away from that building. Now I live at Mike's, waiting for the old place to be demolished. Recently, I found missed calls from my apartment's landline. I threw out the SIM card in my phone. Those aren't my problems anymore.